I want you to imagine something with me for just a moment. Imagine the world is asleep. The streets are quiet. The lights in most houses are off. Social media has gone silent. Nobody is applauding. Nobody is watching. Nobody is liking your posts. Nobody is encouraging you. Nobody is asking how your dream is going. It is just you, your thoughts, your discipline, and the decision that will shape the rest of your life. Because let me tell you something, success is not built when people are watching. Success is built in the hours nobody sees. That's the part they never put on television. That's the chapter people skip when they tell their success stories. Everyone loves the trophy. Very few people love the training. Everyone wants the spotlight. Very few people are willing to sit alone in the darkness where champions are created. And that is where your future is being decided, not during the celebration, not when people are clapping, not when your bank account finally grows. Your future is being decided tonight, tomorrow morning, next weekend, during those invisible hours when no one would know if you worked or if you quit. Think about this for a moment. If nobody ever knew how hard you worked, would you still work hard? If nobody ever praised your progress, would you still improve? If nobody ever celebrated your discipline, would you still stay disciplined? Those questions separate dreamers from builders. I learned something years ago that completely changed the way I looked at success. The world rewards what it can see. Life rewards what nobody can see. People see the business. Life saw the 1,000 mornings you woke up early. People see the confident speaker. Life saw the years of practicing alone. People see the healthy body. Life saw every meal you refused. People see the millionaire. Life saw every sacrifice nobody applauded. The visible victory is simply the receipt. The real purchase happened in private. Here's what most people don't understand. There is a dangerous addiction in modern life. It's called visible effort. People want everyone to know they're trying. They announce every goal. They post every workout. They talk about every business idea. They tell everyone they're going to change. But talking about success gives the brain a small reward without earning the real reward. Be careful not to confuse announcing your future with building your future. The seed doesn't become a tree because it tells the forest its plans. It grows quietly, patiently, underground, and for a long time, it looks like nothing is happening. Have you ever planted something? For days, sometimes weeks. There's nothing to see, no evidence, no applause, no proof. Yet beneath the surface, life is expanding. Roots are growing. Strength is developing. A foundation is forming. Success works exactly the same way. Most people quit because they mistake invisible progress for no progress. But invisible does not mean impossible. Invisible does not mean ineffective. Invisible simply means it's not time yet. That's why patience is one of the highest forms of confidence. You're telling life, I believe the work I'm doing today will become the life I live tomorrow. Most people can't do that. They need immediate evidence, immediate money, immediate compliments, immediate results. And because life doesn't operate on immediate rewards, they give up before the harvest. Let me tell you about an ordinary man. No newspaper ever wrote about him. He wasn't famous. He wasn't wealthy. He worked 12-hour shifts at a factory. Every evening he came home exhausted. His friends laughed when he opened books after dinner. They said, "Why are you studying? You're already too old." They watched television. He studied. They slept. He learned. They spent weekends complaining. He spent weekends improving. Nothing changed for 2 years. Nothing. Same paycheck. Same apartment. Same old car. If you judged him by appearances, you'd think his effort meant nothing. But then one opportunity appeared. Just one. A promotion. Not because he got lucky. Because during the hours nobody saw, he became the person the opportunity required. Successes did not arrive that day. Success had been arriving every night for 2 years. The promotion was simply when the world finally noticed. Understand this. Opportunities don't make successful people. They reveal them. Preparation always comes before opportunity. Always. Imagine two people standing before the same door. The opportunity opens. One walks through, the other freezes. People call it luck. I call it preparation. One prepared during invisible hours. The other waited for visible opportunities. Those are completely different lives. Here's what pain teaches us. Every person will experience pain. That's not optional. The only choice you have is which pain you'll carry, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Discipline whispers. Regret screams. Discipline asks for minutes. Regret steals years. Discipline hurts now. Regret hurts forever. Think about every person you admire. Every one of them became friends with temporary discomfort. They stopped asking, how do I avoid hard things? They started asking, which hard thing moves me toward my future? Because life never becomes easy. You simply become stronger. The weight didn't get lighter. Your muscles grew. The problem didn't shrink. Your perspective expanded. Your confidence increased because confidence is earned. Confidence is not something you think yourself into. Confidence is evidence collected from promises you've kept to yourself. Read that again inside your heart. Confidence is evidence. Every morning you wake up when you promised another piece of evidence. Every workout completed. Another piece of evidence. Every book finished. Another piece of evidence. Every excuse defeated. Another piece of evidence. Eventually your mind says, I know this person. This person keeps going. This person doesn't quit. That's confidence, not motivation. Evidence. And here's where people become confused. They chase motivation. Successful people build systems. Motivation says, I'll work when I feel inspired. Discipline says, I'll feel inspired because I worked. Huge difference. Feelings are terrible leaders, wonderful passengers, terrible leaders. If your emotions drive your life will constantly change direction. But if your values drive your life, your emotions eventually catch up. That's why winners often begin their mornings before they feel ready. Not because they're special, because they understand something most people never learn. Action creates emotion more often than emotion creates action. Waiting to feel motivated is like waiting for confidence before learning to swim. You gain confidence because you entered the water. Not before. Think about this for a moment. What if your future self could visit you tonight? Not 10 years from now, tonight. What would that version of you thank you for? Would they thank you for scrolling another hour? Would they thank you for postponing your dream? Would they thank you for saying, I'll start Monday? Or would they beg you, please don't waste this evening. Please don't waste this opportunity. Please don't trade our future for temporary comfort. You see, your future is talking to you every day. It doesn't use words. It uses consequences. Every decision whispers toward tomorrow. Every habit writes another sentence in the story of your life. That's why ordinary moments are never ordinary. One workout doesn't change your body. One workout changes your identity. One page doesn't make you wise. One page makes you someone who reads. One saved dollar doesn't make you wealthy. It makes you someone who respects money. Identity always comes before destiny. You don't rise to success. You grow into it. I met people who desperately wanted $1 million lives with $100 habits. It never works. Your habits are voting every day for the person you're becoming. Every action casts another vote. Skip enough workouts, you become someone who quits. Keep enough promises, you become someone who finishes. Life isn't deciding your future. Your repeated decisions already have. Here's what most people don't understand about overnight success. There is no overnight success. Only overnight visibility. The bamboo tree spends years growing underground before exploding upward in a short period. People see the explosion. They ignore the years beneath the surface. The musician practices thousands of invisible hours. People hear one perfect performance. The athlete trains while everyone else sleeps. People remember one championship game. The entrepreneur fails quietly. People celebrate one successful company. Never compare your beginning to someone else's visible middle. You're comparing your backstage to their highlight reel. That comparison will always steal your peace. Instead, ask yourself, am I better than yesterday? Did I learn something today? Did I become slightly stronger today? Because success loves small improvements. 1% today, 1% tomorrow, 1% next week. Tiny gains become massive transformations because of the compound effect. The compound effect is one of life's greatest miracles. A single drop of water seems powerless, but thousands of drops can carve through solid rock. Not because they're powerful individually, because they're consistent collectively. Consistency beats intensity. Anyone can have one incredible day. Few people build incredible years. And years create extraordinary lives. Let me tell you something I wish every young person understood. You don't become exceptional by doing exceptional things occasionally. You become exceptional by doing ordinary things extraordinarily well again and again and again. When nobody is watching. Especially when nobody is watching, because that's when your character speaks. Character is what remains after applause disappears. Integrity is doing the right thing after recognition leaves the room. And character, more than talent, more than intelligence, more than connections, is what carries people through storms that destroy everyone else. I have watched brilliant people lose because they lacked discipline. I have watched average people win because they refuse to quit. Talent opens doors. Character keeps them open. Discipline builds the house. Patience protects it. Wisdom fills it. And every one of those qualities is developed in silence, in obscurity, in moments when the world has no idea what you're becoming. That's why I never underestimate quiet people. Sometimes the quietest person in the room is fighting the biggest battle, building the biggest dream, preparing for the biggest breakthrough. Because not everyone announces their progress. Some people simply become undeniable. And when they finally arrive, because they spent years becoming the kind of person that success could trust. Let me tell you something. Doxesis has trust issues. It doesn't stay with people who are only committed when life is convenient. It doesn't remain with people who only show up when they're inspired. Success watches you long before it rewards you. It watches how you respond when nobody checks on you. It watches what you do when your alarm clock rings and your bed feels warmer than your dream. It watches whether you tell the truth when lying would be easier. It watches whether you continue after disappointment or whether you surrender at the first sign of resistance. You see, people think life is testing their intelligence. Most of the time, life is testing their consistency. Here's what most people don't understand. Your future is built on ordinary Tuesdays, not on New Year's Day. Not on birthdays. Not after watching another motivational video. Your future is built on those random afternoons when you decide to keep going, even though nobody would blame you for stopping. Think about this for a moment. There are days when you feel powerful. Everything seems possible. You wake up energized. You believe in yourself. Those days are wonderful. But they don't define your future. The days that define your future are the difficult ones. The mornings when you don't feel like reading. The evenings when you're exhausted. The weekends when everyone else is relaxing while you're investing in your future. Because anybody can move forward when the wind is behind them. Character is revealed when you're walking into the storm. I learned something years ago from watching a man build houses. Every single morning before the workers arrived, he would walk around the construction site alone. He wasn't carrying heavy tools. He wasn't pouring concrete. He wasn't hammering nails. He was simply looking, measuring, checking the foundation. One day I asked him, "Why do you spend so much time looking at something that nobody notices?" He smiled. He said, "Because the parts nobody notices determine whether the whole building survives." That sentence stayed with me, because your life is exactly the same. People notice your smile. They don't notice your thoughts. People notice your success. They don't notice your habits. People notice your confidence. They don't notice the conversations you've had with yourself every single morning. The unseen parts of your life are carrying the seen parts of your life. If your private world is weak, your public world eventually collapses. That's why protecting your mind is one of the greatest responsibilities you'll ever have. You cannot spend all day feeding your mind doubt and expect confidence. You cannot spend every evening comparing yourself to strangers. You cannot constantly surround yourself with negativity and expect a positive future. Your mind is a garden. Whatever you water grows. Every thought repeated becomes stronger. Every belief reinforced becomes easier to believe. That's why you have to become the guardian of your own thinking. Not because life is easy, because your thoughts become your decisions. Your decisions become your habits. Your habits become your character. And your character becomes your destiny. People often ask me, how do I stay motivated? I think they're asking the wrong question. The better question is, how do I become the kind of person who acts regardless of motivation? Because motivation is emotional. Identity is permanent. If you see yourself as someone who always quits, you'll find reasons to quit. If you see yourself as someone who finishes, your mind begins searching for ways to finish. Identity changes everything. Years ago, there was a young woman working 2 jobs just to pay rent. She dreamed of becoming a nurse. Every night after work, she studied. Sometimes she fell asleep with books open beside her. Sometimes she cried because she couldn't remember another chapter. Sometimes she questioned whether all the sacrifice was worth it. Her friends were enjoying weekends. She was reviewing anatomy. Her coworkers were spending money. She was saving for tuition. Nobody applauded her. Nobody handed her trophies for studying after midnight. There were no cameras recording those lonely nights. But every page she read was another brick. Every test she passed, another brick. Every sacrifice, another brick. Years later, someone walked into a hospital. They saw a confident nurse calmly helping patients. They said, "You're so lucky you found such a great career." Lucky? They called years of invisible sacrifice luck. Never be discouraged when people misunderstand your success. They weren't there when you built it. Here's something I want every one of you to remember. The price of greatness is often paid in installments, not all at once. One early morning, one difficult conversation, one extra hour, one book, one disciplined decision, one temptation resisted, one excuse defeated, one promise kept. The bill for success arrives daily. The reward usually arrives later, and that's where most people walk away, because they confuse delayed rewards with denied rewards. Just because life hasn't rewarded you yet doesn't mean life isn't watching. Farmers understand this better than most people. They don't dig up the seed every morning to see if it's growing. Imagine how ridiculous that would be. Plant the seed. Wake up tomorrow. Dig it up. Let's see if anything happened. Plant it again. Repeat. Nothing would ever grow. Yet that's exactly what people do with their dreams. They start, then they doubt, they stop, then they restart, then they compare, then they quit, then they blame. Meanwhile, the person beside them quietly keeps watering the same dream month after month, year after year. Eventually, one field is full of harvest, the other is full of excuses. Patience is not passive. Patience is disciplined action over a long period of time. That's a completely different thing. Let me tell you about regret. Regret is one of the heaviest things a human being can carry. Not because of what happened, because of what never happened. The business you never started. The book you never wrote. The conversation you never had. The opportunity you never took. The person you never became. I've spoken with people at the end of long lives. Do you know what they rarely say? I wish I had watched more television. I wish I had worried more. I wish I had spent more time trying to impress people who didn't care about me. No, they speak about chances they ignored, dreams they postponed, time they assumed they had. One of the greatest illusions in life is believing there will always be another tomorrow exactly like today. But time doesn't negotiate. Time doesn't pause because you're afraid. Time doesn't wait until you feel ready. It simply keeps moving. Every sunrise quietly asks the same question. What will you do with me? And every sunset records your answer. Think about that. Every single day is like a blank page. By the time you close your eyes at night, the page has been written. The question isn't whether you wrote something. The question is whether you wrote something worth remembering. Here's what most people don't understand about excellence. Excellence is exhausting before it becomes exciting. When you're learning a new skill, it's awkward. When you're building discipline, it's uncomfortable. When you're changing your habits, it's frustrating. Your old self keeps calling you back. Your comfort zone keeps negotiating. Your excuses become more creative. Hey, have you noticed that? Excuses are incredibly intelligent. They always sound reasonable. You've had a hard week. You deserve a break. You can start tomorrow. Missing one day won't matter. And one day becomes 1 week. 1 week becomes 1 month. 1 month becomes another year where nothing changes. That's why you have to become aware of the conversations happening inside your own mind. Because before every action, there is a conversation. Before you quit, there is a conversation. Before you continue, there is a conversation. Before you become successful, there are thousands of conversations where you decide whether comfort or commitment will lead your life. The strongest people are not those who never hear excuses. They're the ones who hear them, smile, and keep moving anyway, because they understand something that changes everything. You don't have to win every day. You simply cannot afford to surrender. There is a difference. Some days you move fast. Some days you move slowly. Some days all you can do is take one small step. Take it. Because progress has a memory. Every honest effort teaches your mind that quitting is no longer your identity. And eventually something remarkable begins to happen. The things that once felt impossible become normal. Waking up early no longer feels like punishment. Reading every day no longer feels difficult. Saving money no longer feels like sacrifice. Discipline slowly transforms into lifestyle. And once discipline becomes lifestyle, you've crossed a line that very few people ever reach. Because now you're no longer forcing yourself to become successful. You're simply living as the person you decided to become. And that's when people begin asking questions. What changed? How did you become so focused? What's your secret? They think it happened all at once. They never saw the mornings when you doubted yourself and showed up anyway. They never saw the nights when you wanted to quit, but chose one more page, one more hour, one more attempt. They never saw the invisible victories that eventually became visible success. And that's why I keep telling you, don't underestimate what happens when you keep showing up during the hours nobody sees. Because somewhere, without making a sound, your future is being assembled piece by piece, habit by habit, decision by decision, until one ordinary day, the world will call you extraordinary. And even then, what they'll never fully understand is that the extraordinary moment began years earlier on a quiet morning when there was no audience, no applause, no guarantee, just one simple decision that whispered, keep going, and you listened. Because there is incredible power in one decision repeated over and over again. Most people are waiting for a breakthrough. Successful people become the breakthrough. There is a difference. One waits for life to change. The other changes themselves until life has no choice but to respond. Let me tell you something that changed my perspective forever. A mentor once asked me a question that I couldn't answer immediately. He looked at me and said, "If your dreams were watching the way you live today, would they choose you?" Think about that for a moment. If your future success could interview your daily habits, would it hire you? If your goals examined your schedule, would they trust you? If your dreams looked at how you spend your mornings, your evenings, your weekends, your attention, would they say, "Yes, this is the person we've been waiting for"? Or would they quietly walk away and wait for someone more prepared? Because dreams are expensive, not financially, personally. They demand patience, they demand sacrifice, they demand maturity. They ask you to become someone different before they become your reality. That's the price. People say they want extraordinary lives, but they protect ordinary habits. Those two things cannot live together. If tomorrow is going to be different, today cannot stay the same. I remember hearing about a violinist who practiced before sunrise every single day, not because anyone forced him, not because an audience was waiting, because excellence had become a private commitment. One morning, a neighbor finally asked him, "Why do you still practice so much? You're already one of the best." The violinist smiled and answered, "Because if I miss one day, I notice. If I miss 2 days, my students notice. If I miss 3 days, the audience notices." That's wisdom. Decline rarely happens in one dramatic moment. It happens quietly. One skipped workout, one unnecessary excuse. One careless decision, one more hour wasted. Tiny choices, repeated consistently. Just as success compounds, so does neglect. That's why guarding your habits is one of the greatest forms of self-respect. Because habits don't care what you believe. They care what you repeat. You become what you repeatedly practice. Not occasionally. Repeatedly. Here's what most people don't understand about discipline. Discipline isn't punishment. Discipline is protection. It protects your future from your temporary emotions. It protects your finances from your impulses. It protects your health from your cravings. It protects your dreams from your excuses. The disciplined person isn't living with more restrictions. They're living with more freedom. Because every disciplined decision creates another opportunity tomorrow. Every careless decision steals one. Think about an airplane. One tiny adjustment to its direction seems insignificant. Just 1 degree, barely noticeable. But fly long enough, and that 1 degree changes the destination by hundreds of miles. Your life works exactly the same way. 1 degree better every day. Wake up a little earlier. Ride a little longer, complain a little less. Learn a little more, save a little extra, forgive a little faster. Listen a little deeper. 1 degree, not perfection, direct. Too many people become discouraged because they expect transformation to feel dramatic. Most transformation is quiet. The strongest roots grow in silence. The brightest diamonds are formed under pressure. The deepest rivers move without making much noise. Life has always hidden its greatest work beneath the surface. That's why I never worry about someone who is quietly improving. I worry about the person who believes improvement is unnecessary. Arrogance has ended more dreams than failure ever could. Failure teaches. Arrogance refuses to learn. One of the most dangerous sentences you'll ever say is, "I already know." The moment you stop learning, you stop growing. And the moment you stop growing, you're already moving backward, whether you realize it or not. I met an elderly man once who was nearly 80 years old. Every afternoon he sat in the same library reading books. Someone finally asked him, "At your age, why are you still studying?" He laughed. Then he said something I'll never forget. because tomorrow deserves a wiser version of me than today. Imagine carrying that mindset through your entire life. Never arriving. Never believing you've learned enough. Never assuming success gives you permission to become comfortable. Because comfort has a strange way of disguising itself as success. You accomplish one goal, people congratulate you, life becomes easier. And then, without realizing it, you begin protecting what you've earned instead of continuing to grow. Growth doesn't stop because you've achieved something. Growth stops because you decide you've achieved enough. Here's what I learned after watching countless successful people. They remain students. Always. They ask questions. They stay curious. They listen more than they speak. They understand that every person knows something they don't. Humility keeps their minds open. And open minds keep growing. Closed minds become prisons. Open minds become pathways. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you sat alone without distractions? No phone, no television, no music, just you and your thoughts. For many people, that's uncomfortable. Do you know why? Because silence introduces us to ourselves. And many people have spent years running from that meeting. They stay busy. Not because they're productive, because busyness helps them avoid reflection. But growth requires reflection. You cannot improve a life you refuse to examine. Some of the greatest conversations you'll ever have will happen with yourself. Not the version of yourself that's full of excuses. The honest version, the one that quietly says, you know you can do better. You know you're capable of more. You know this isn't the life you truly want. That voice isn't criticizing you. It's calling you higher. Learn to listen to it. Because every remarkable transformation begins with radical honesty. Not shame, not guilt. Honesty. I've been wasting time. I've been blaming people. I've been waiting instead of working. I've been expecting results without becoming the person who deserves them. That kind of honesty is painful, but it's also liberating because once you tell yourself the truth, you finally know where to begin. Personal responsibility is one of the most empowering ideas in the world. Some people hear responsibility and they hear blame. I hear freedom because if someone else controls your future, then you're powerless. But if your choices matter, then every sunrise gives you another opportunity. That's exciting. It means your story isn't trapped in yesterday. You can begin rewriting it today. Not because yesterday didn't happen, but because tomorrow hasn't happened yet. There was a young man who spent years blaming everyone around him, his parents, his boss, the economy, his friends, his circumstances. He had an explanation for every disappointment. And every explanation made him feel justified. One evening, an older gentleman listened patiently as the young man listed every reason his life wasn't improving. When he finished, the older man quietly asked, everything you've said may be true, but tell me, which one of those reasons is going to wake up tomorrow morning and build your future for you? Silence. Complete silence. Because excuses may explain your past, they never create your future. That question became a turning point. The young man stopped asking, whose fault is this? He started asking, what can I do next? Those 6 words, what can I do next, can change an entire life because they shift your attention from problems to possibilities, from helplessness to action, from waiting to building. Let me tell you something else. Energy follows purpose. People often say they're tired. Sometimes they are physically tired, but many times they're purpose tired. They're exhausted because they're investing enormous amounts of energy into things that don't matter. Worry, comparison, resentment, complaining, trying to impress people, they'll never truly satisfy. Imagine carrying heavy bags all day that don't belong to you. Of course, you'd be exhausted. Many people are carrying emotional weight they were never meant to carry, old disappointments. Someone else's opinions, my mistakes from years ago, the fear of being judged, put those bags down, not because the past didn't matter, because your future needs both hands. You cannot build tomorrow while constantly carrying yesterday. Forgiveness is often misunderstood. People think forgiveness is about the other person. Many